Hello, welcome. My name's Doug Fink. We're going to talk about what's cooking in the AI space. It's the last Friday in January in 2026, and stuff is awesome. My name's Doug Fink, 16-time Microsoft MVP. Wrote a book about PowerShell. I've been doing these online live streams for a while. Been doing them almost weekly for the last few months. Combination of PowerShell and AI. I've got tools out there like PSAI, PSClaudeCode. I wrote a mini Claude in PowerShell. I've got my import Excel module out there. So I do a whole bunch of different things. I think my import Excel module is almost at 19 million downloads. Yeah, so a lot of exciting stuff. And just to drop a note, and thanks to a bunch of folks in the community, I've been talking about, either doing a workshop or setting up like a Patreon. And I reached out to some folks, and especially Rich, thank you, and chatted about what I thought I would offer. It's going to be a premium space, so it's going to be a paid space, and I'm probably going to start it in the next couple of weeks. And I was been looking at things like Patreon, like I said, and a whole bunch of different ways to deliver it. And I think I've honed in on one. I've got a bunch of workflows that I'm comfortable with, so it's not a ton of admin work for me. Hopefully, you'll join us over there. And I will be announcing that over the coming weeks. I'll probably have another live stream next Friday and the one after, and probably announce it within that time with a link and whatnot. Should be a lot of fun. One of the things I plan to do is have weekly. Well, I don't know about weekly. I'm not sure the frequency yet, but I'm going to have open. So you join. It's a paid community. A lot of the stuff, I'll continue to free stuff here, doing live streams, and some of the stuff that I show, rather than it'll be available on the premium. I'll demo what it is, show you what if you like it. If you want, join the premium and you get the code. And I'll also be doing um, open office hours as a part of that, joining the page community. Probably at least, like 60 minutes or so. People come, bring your problems, what help debug them, uh, show and tell. I can show and tell, but I won't, I'll sit back and folks having issues. I'm trying this, I'm trying that. What's going on with Moltbot? What's going on with this? What's going on with that? I spend I've spent thousands of hours over the last couple of years going down the rabbit hole of AI, so I can look at a bunch of stuff and go, looks interesting. Um, I don't do predictions. I go where I think is fun and enjoyable. Claudebot is definitely or Moltbot is on my list of things to do. I think it's, somebody correct me. I think it's only, one of the reasons I have it is I think it's only on Mac. And some people are actually spending like $500 to buy a Mac Mini to spin it all up on. And then I saw some people say, "Oh, we can do it this way, that way, the other thing." So yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. It's multi-platform. Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. Um, in fact, if you know All-in-One podcast, loads on most. Excellent. If you know the All-in podcast, Jason, who is kind of like one of the key folks on that, he just announced that he's putting everything he has on Moltbot, and he's giving it keys and all this kind of stuff to all the things that they do, and he's already seeing, like, it's relieving tons of work that they used to do. In addition, but I don't know I don't know if he, there's lots of concerns of prompt injection, which shouldn't stop you from trying the stuff out. Um, you know, Always assume a breach. This might be another easy vector. We don't know yet. A lot of people are saying that, oh, they're going to be crying soon because they're going to get pawned. I don't know if they've given them credit cards. I was chatting. I think was it. I forget who I was chatting with about that. I don't know if they've given it credit cards yet. So, to go do certain kinds of things. But the concept of Claudebot, I mean, I look at it, I've looked at some of the plugins because it's like, oh yeah, I can build that and I can make it available in what I do. Um, PSClaudeCode, the mini Claude code, 250 lines of code. I have it up on GitHub. Grab it if you want. And you can take a look at the 200 lines of code. It's not rocket science, and it's a really amazing concept what Anthropic came up with and people have distilled. I was orbiting that space of building that, and then somebody, connected the dots for me. I was like, oh yeah, sub agents. I already had function calling. I had already had autonomous agents doing things with LLMs, and it's a whole round trip. And all it is are loops within inner loops. It's not that complicated. And if you look at the code, you can should be able to pick it out. And that's something that we might talk about, like in one of the office hours, go through what that is and why that is. Good way to get your head around this stuff, internalize what this thing is doing so that when they drop things like Claudebot and Moltbot, it's not like, oh my God, what are they doing? It's all magic. No, it's not really. It's brilliant implementation. It's interesting twists on how to apply this stuff. And that's the you know, that's the special sauce. It's not actually the coding and the techniques. It's just like, oh, well, if you give it this kind of information and you give it in this loop, you can get this emerging behavior. Pete says, think I'm going to deploy it on Cloudflare Worker as they created a GitHub repo to deploy for me, but I haven't fully looked into it and confirmed that. There you go. I've heard some people using droplets on DigitalOcean to do all this kind of stuff. Um, you know, if you're not comfortable just setting up a space, you can go the other route, use Cloudflare, and then just tie it into GitHub. But at the same time, it's not really hard to build. Um, do you have done the same too? So Pete's posted in there a mult worker. Yep. So don't miss out on this stuff. Jump on it. You don't have to give it all the keys to your kingdom. Um, yeah, Cloudflare is a great solution. I think the DigitalOcean is a great solution. And I'm not, I have an extra laptop, which is where I was going to put it on. Some people are actually putting it on old Macs that they have. Um, Not that hard to set up. And, I, and if you put it on a laptop and it does something you don't like, like format your disk, which I doubt it will, or it might hit some things that you don't want it to, then put it on a machine that's not that sensitive, then there's not too much risk about you getting pawned or prompt injected. Probably people out there are not really looking at grabbing the monies that most of us have in the bank account. They're going to go for somebody like, all in podcast people, hoping for at the fingertips posh solution. Somebody just did something with Claudebot or Moltbot, and they showed how they set some things up. And I was like, oh, I don't know if they did it in Bash or whatever. I was like, oh yeah, we should just wrap that puppy in PowerShell and get some all kinds of cool stuff. So today I'm going to post this what I'm recording now up on my YouTube. Definitely get on there, check out some of the videos that I've done. I talk about Claude code built natively in PowerShell. It's a 10-minute video. It's worth taking a look at. Um, I think I took one of the README from PSClaudeCode. I dropped it into Google's Notebook LM, and I had to come up with a podcast to discuss it. It discussed it better than I could. I even learned stuff because it actually doesn't not only reads what you're doing, what you're giving it, and then pulls from resources and then makes choices and then puts it part of their podcast presentation. Uh, Going forward, this is the resource where I'll put the live streams on um, and talk more about the upcoming community that I will launch. All right, where are we? So I've got a whole bunch of things. Um, this is such a pain sometimes. I got a bunch of things, not in any particular order. There we go. So one of the interesting things in the AI space, take it any way you want. So Microsoft lost more than $440 billion in market cap. Looks like the market's not happy with people are making points that their AI investment hasn't come to fruition. Um, so there's a lot of people who don't like Microsoft jumping on, complaining about Copilot and whatnot. And Microsoft's doing a ton of stuff in the Copilot space. In my opinion, Microsoft's way late to the game. And I think back in 23 or 24, I was knocking at the VS Code people's door, being a 16-time Microsoft MVP, saying, hey, have you looked at this Klein stuff, Kleinbot and Aider? It's really interesting what they're doing, and it's got real potential. And I got things like, yeah, it's on our radar. We're looking at it. Nothing yet. And then all of a sudden, like a year ago, I don't know if it was like late 24, I'm not sure when, or maybe early 25. All of a sudden, it was like they set fire to everybody and said, we need a solution that starts to do what Claude Code and Codex does. So they're in the middle of building what they're building. They got a lot of smart people on it. Um, when how many people here? Type of one. If you had, if you remember when Google dropped Bard. Anybody here remember when they first came out with Bard right after OpenAI did their thing? There we go. Got a couple of people. There you go. All right. How well did that go? Does anybody remember all the hoopla around that? So everybody was like, "Oh man, Google invented LLMs, and they can't even get a product out that does good things." Um, Too late was the theme. There you go. And now Google's doing some really amazing stuff. They're even doing stuff with worldviews, with where they believe that AI needs to look at a real world situations in order to become AGI and ASI, and see how that goes. But yeah, they were people were counting them out in 2023, and so I wouldn't count out Microsoft or anybody else, but they may get some serious battle scars from whatever's going on. Um, Rich says M365 rolling out Anthropic and Copilot agents, research agent out already. Yeah, I'm not a fan of 365. I don't use it. Um, it's good for peoples and corporations. Um, I can do pretty much anything that they do from the command line. But yeah, I also don't think that a particular, I think it's good that Microsoft isn't limiting just to one vendor. Even Satya Nadella has said, the world and their customers don't believe there's going to be a single winner. I agree with that. Everybody's leapfrogging each other in terms of putting out new LLMs and doing something better. They're having better user experiences, developer experiences, AI experiences in all different ways. Several months ago, we didn't even know Claude Code existed, and now it's like it's the rage. So, and for good reason. Um, so flapping airplanes is just getting started. There you go, Troy. Yep, I think I also tweeted about that or posted on X. Um, and they're getting a big thumbs up from Andre Karpathy, the guy who founded OpenAI, was one of the founders of OpenAI. So yeah, they're coming on board. They got like 100. They got a small amount of money, $120 million investment round. But they're going to be interesting as well. Yep. So, and they're looking at AI from a completely different perspective. So, yeah, tons of stuff going on. It's not really, you know, I don't know how much I can't keep my fingers on everything, but I just kind of like let it wash over my brain. Alan says work IQ used with Claude, Copilot, et cetera, will be interesting. Absolutely. I'm not a fan of work IQ, but we shall see. I think all that stuff is just marketing, but I could be wrong. And if it starts to take hold, yep, I'll be an adopter. They're all going to be, I mean, Microsoft's kind of like throwing everything at the wall, see what sticks. Whereas, OpenAI is doing their thing and they're targeting the consumer. Anthropic is targeting the enterprise. Everybody talks why the other strategy is better. Um, my personal preference is I like to have my hands on the knobs and dials, and so I can figure out. Like if you crack in a safe, you have to have your finger on the dial, and you can feel the tumblers shake. I don't know if you ever try to pick locks, but you can feel the tumblers fall into place when you start to do that kind of stuff, and that's how you really get good at picking locks and whatnot. Not that I was ever any that good, or have done it in years, but I feel the same thing about technology. I need to see how it works. I can't just sit back and go, you know, and having M365 with a thing on, but we're going to see something I'm going to show some Claude in Excel today, which is really cool. So the other thing I picked out that I thought was interesting, Sam Altman said that by the end of this year, end of 26, for $100 to $1,000, pay attention, for from $100 to $1,000 out of your pocket for inference and good idea, you'll be able to create software that would have taken teams of people a year to do. Right. So take that in. Right. That's a magnitude of economic change is very hard to wrap your head around. So for $1,000, you can build software that would take in a team of people a year to do. right? You need the idea, you need to figure things out. It may or may not work the way you want, and then there's deployment issues, whatever that's going to be. But for very little money, you can start doing that by the end of 2026. By 2027, that cost is going to come down. So, I look at where the puck is going. I'm not going to be able to do that kind of stuff in Work IQ. I'm not going to be able to do that in M365. And that's not my direction. I'm not saying I'm not trying to sell you anything. My direction, we all have different directions. We all have day jobs, right? And so it's interesting. Granite.dev is still on tap, getting exec buy-in. Awesome. I would love to hear more. I saw you drop some stuff on that to me, um, yeah, I'm really impressed with Google's Notebook LM. I'm not going to show any of that today. Um, I'm surprised it's getting a lot of play. And I'm surprised it's not bigger than it is. It's a really cool concept. Yeah, awesome stuff. So I also now I posted this video on X and on um, LinkedIn. If you want to follow me, I'm at DFINKE, DFink on X, and I'm also on, yeah, whatever. So can you see that? So am I still sharing? Just making sure. Hopefully. So am I still sharing? Can you see the video I have up? This is Anders Hejlsberg. Thank you. Anders Hejlsberg, just a background on him. He's been around for 40 years. He's one of the most prolific influencers over the last 40 years in software design languages. He invented Turbo Pascal in the 80s. He invented Delphi in the 90s. He went to work for Microsoft after working at Borland on Delphi, which was supposed to be a Visual Basic killer. It was quite an impressive product, but it took the world by storm, but didn't take hold as well. He went to Microsoft. He worked on J# and J++. Then he came up with the idea, let's build something called C#. He invented that, and then he invented TypeScript. And recently, they always do the GitHub stuff that says what are the top languages in use on the GitHub platform, and TypeScript just surpassed, I think, Python and C#. I think Python as well, and Ruby was on there, blah blah, C++. So anyway, he did a 45-minute interview, and this is a 50-second clip of him talking about AI. So pay attention. Maybe we'll just take notes, I think, and you should. It's only 50 seconds, and we'll chat about a couple of these pieces. I think this sets the theme for 26 and today's demos. And let's see if we can get the proper audio cooking.
Humans still have to be in the loop there. Now, exactly how that shakes out, I don't know. In terms of tooling, though, boy, who the heck knows? There's this whole switch that has happened in AI, but now it's switching around. The AI is doing the work, right? And you're supervising what it's doing. And it doesn't necessarily need an IDE in the same way that we need IDEs, right?
So here he's saying that agents and LLMs don't need IDEs the way humans do. I think I said in 2025, I heard smattering. I was looking at the IDEs and I was like, why do we need this? Like I'm just running, agents to do things, and then I look at the code. But I'm really, I was working to step away from coding just as an experiment. And then other people started saying, like Anthropic, we're not going to have IDEs by the end of the year. So, Anders invented TypeScript. Visual Studio Code is built in TypeScript. And so here's one of the top influencers on the planet. He influences what IBM influences what Microsoft talks about. And he's saying LLMs don't need IDEs like humans do. What else does he say?
It still needs the services. And that's why giving AI the ability to ask semantic questions or refactoring questions or whatever.
So for we as humans, when we look at a piece of code, we can look at something that's a function and it's a method, it's a signature, it's a class, it's a PowerShell function, it's a Go or a Python function. There's a bunch of data structures that get built, dictionaries and whatnot. And we as humans can look at that and figure it out. And now what Anders is saying, if we give those services directly into LLMs, let it query the actual text in the scope of what language it's working, right? Um, it can ask questions semantically about large code bases of hundreds of thousands, millions of lines of code to figure out semantically what fits where across where. And it's a lot easier than just reading comments and dead code or code that's over here and there. And it can start doing things like ask refactoring questions. So let's go.
But still do sort of the equivalent of what you would do in an
So let's back that up a little bit.
Giving AI the ability to ask semantic questions or refactoring questions or whatever, but still do sort of the equivalent of what you would do in an IDE, but do it the LLM way or the agent way. That's going to change development tools dramatically. I don't know where it lands and what the balance is between those longer term, but there's a big shift on the way.
So just as a note, and we haven't even gotten to a demo, my apologies. But so Anders invented TypeScript and Visual Studio Code is built on it. And the compilers are written in TypeScript that compile TypeScript. And the 1.5 million lines that support the Visual Studio Code product, it takes about 80 seconds to compile the entire code base, right? And so now Anders, over the last year, 2 years, they looked at different languages and they decided they were going to rewrite the compiler in Go. And in doing that, they went from an 80-second compile time down to, I think, 7 seconds. So if you play that out, 80 seconds sounds like, okay, so that's a minute and a half. So if a developer makes a couple of changes in some code and they want to get that feedback, they have to compile it, run the Visual Studio Code, click on where they wanted to do, and then say, oh, it ran out, it had a runtime error or it had a different kind of error, or that's not exactly what I want. Back to the code, do the changes, recompile another 90 seconds, another minute and a half. And now in a single run of 80, 90 seconds that it would take, the new version, you can rebuild it 10 times. So now you give AI the same thing and you give it access to the language service providers, the LSPs, and now AI can actually build a million lines of code, compile it in 7 seconds, and then do all kinds of analysis, do refactoring, and you're off to the races. And if you scale that down to thousands of lines, you're talking about LLMs being able to generate code and concepts and whatnot. And I don't even know where this goes. But it becomes a whole different tooling of what you get to do your job. On top of that, more and more people are starting to say, and I agree, I can sit inside of a piece of Go code and I can say port this to Python, and the LLM does it, right? I don't know Go. Never programmed in it like day to day professionally to make money, and I've never done that in Python. I've used it, but I've never been a hardcore developer in either one. I was a hardcore developer in C#. But if I look at a piece of C# and I'm like, hey, this would be great if I could just take this and put it in an executable. Let me just drop it into Rust. I don't have to worry about how Rust is built. Off to the races. And in fact, you can take a look at my GitHub. And on a whim, I was like, let me ask AI to start building the PowerShell runtime in Rust. And I did that over, I think there was a lapse time of like an hour, 2 hours of AI time over 3 days that I would just check and see what happened, and I'd run what it built, and I'd say, hey, you didn't do this, or I would like that. It's not PowerShell in this way, and that, and I'd give it that as an issue as a QA person, and then it would go back and change it to be to what I asked. And I've got a pretty significant PowerShell AI or a PowerShell runtime written by AI all in Rust that I never touched a line of code. So what language you're writing in for front end, back end is becoming irrelevant. And that's not just my opinion. I had those inklings, but that's becoming more and more what people are thinking. And with what Anders is saying, how it changes tooling, we don't even know what this might bring. So where to? Any questions? And if you got questions, just drop them and we can discuss. Now, I have a bunch of things on the list. I was going to talk about PSClaudeCode a little bit. What do we have on? All right, cool. I was going to talk about have you heard about MCPs, MCP apps? They're pretty interesting. MCPs have a lot of, they're interesting. I don't know. We'll see. I think I posted some stuff I built an MCP with a UI in it. It was a pretty cool concept. Um, I'm going to post about it again. I'm interested in MCPs. Awesome. I'm not going to show exactly how to build the MCP stuff. I'll show you the behavior of one of the capabilities. And then there's a bunch of stuff to talk about, like Claude directly. And let's see. Yeah, let's do. I'm gonna do some Claude. I'm gonna do some Claude stuff in a way that. So, and a couple of people ping me about it. So I'm gonna bring up Excel because I love Excel, and I'm gonna show you how Claude. I'm gonna show you some pieces of Claude in Excel and what it does. So Anthropic dropped Claude in Excel, so it sits right in your desktop. There is an agent on M365. One of the things I don't like that Microsoft did is they locked and bottled the agent purely in M365. I think that was a mistake. Hopefully, they're going to expand it. I'm not sure why they didn't. I don't know if it was because of they can figure they can make more money licensing or they haven't gotten around to it. Doesn't make sense. And they may actually have. I've seen some things where they expanded it where it could run, but anyway, so I went up and I typed up here get add-ins. Um, you need the $20 a month subscription. Insert the add-in, and I have my Claude. You can then go to the store. This is all in Excel, and then I can type in Claude, and you click add, and it installs. I'm going to already install it, so I'm going to hit Alt Control C, and there it loads. So now I have Excel Claude in Excel next to my sheet, right? As you see, if I click around, if you look on the bottom right, it knows where I'm clicking, that I'm clicking ranges. So it's a live interaction with my Excel sheet. When you first do this, you have to log in. You have to have the $20 a month. I'm going to be putting up a video today, later today, tomorrow, that walks through this, how this is coming together. Get the $20 a month, cancel it right away. You have it for a month. If you're interested, play around. Let's see what we can do with this. I think it's now when I look at this stuff, I don't just look at it like, oh, cute interface or oh wow, AI is in another place. I just I added it just a short while ago. Awesome, Pete. Would love to hear more about that when you do, as you go through what your experience is. So I don't just look at this as like, okay, um, just a simple UI and um, just another chat thing. I look at it to get ideas. Like, how does this thing interact with the software that we know today? Is what direction is it going? Where is it trending towards? That's just me. So let's see what we can do. Now, hopefully, the demo gods will do well today, but maybe not, and then we'll see what happens. I'm going to say create. Where am I? Let's okay. Create 10 mock records. Now this is a full-fledged, I'm using it's you can either use Sonnet 4.5, which I'm using, or Opus 4.5. I'll create 10 mock records for sales. So this is a like being in a chat in Anthropic or any other ones that you've seen, except it's directly tied into Excel and it knows a ton about Excel. For sales, region, we're going to say state, units, and price. Okay. And I'll say start in, let's say D4. Okay, let's press enter and see what it does. I'll create 10 mock sales records starting in cell D4. So now it's doing its thing. Now that's semi-cool. Do you see what just happened? So I said that tells me where it puts the headers right up here, and it just created some data, right? Now on the bottom, this is kind of cool and well, interesting to know. If you're not comfortable with doing stuff, you can turn on ask before edits, meaning every step of the way, it's going to say, hey, I'm going to do this. Do you want to continue? Hey, do you want to do this? Are you sure you want to continue? I'm comfortable with it doing whatever, which is why I'm psyched about Moltbot. Just turn that puppy on, and you know what they say, FAFO. And the more you F around, the more you find out. So that just went ahead and built it. Now, I've tried to build this on my own, but that's a different story. Varying types of success from various types of angles. Now I'm going to do this. I'm going to say add total revenue. Let's see what it does. So when I told it D4, it shows that it understands spatial aspects. Okay. Again, how did it know to put that in H4? Right. So it figured that out. And not only did it put the data in there, it also used Excel formulas, which is fantastic, right? Because if I'm building this out and I might go, oh, we're now up to 250, watch total revenue go up, right? So it's doing some really cool things. So it did that. And now I'm going to say make price, and I'm just saying revenue. I'm not going to tell it, oops, let's say and revenue currency. So now hopefully we'll see dollar signs and commas. Oh, there's that. And then we have revenue. See what happens if I say size calls. So now you can play around with the NLP that you do, the natural language processing, and it's too big. So I'm just going to Control Z. So it made it too big. I should have said auto size, but this is how you get to start figuring out what you can type, what it understands, and what it does. Let's do this. Create a chart of region, units by region. Now, if you notice region, there are duplicates, right? So let's see if it does each one individually, which it should not. Oh, yes, it did. So that's kind of funny because today it's so now it came out and it just did the regions and units. Did it do state? Yeah, it did actually did a little more region, state, and units. And now I'm going to come back and just say just region, and then I'm going to say aggregate. Let's see if it what it does. So this is how, again, I'm showing you how this thing works to a degree, and just playing around. What it just did was kind of cool. It switched from a chart and it inlined a pivot table. That's pretty impressive, right? So that way it did the proper summarization of all the units from multiple regions. Now I can say add state and revenue. Well, yeah, now let's just do state. Let's see if it does a nested state, which it should. So we should get region and state, and there you go. So now imagine how long that might have taken by hand, right? And I could have also done things like put the pivot tables on a separate chart. So this is where we're going. So this is how you use things like Claude Code or Visual Studio Code pieces, OpenCode, Codex, so on and so forth, to interact with actual software development. And this is how you can do it with this. And so start to imagine where this might go or how you would build these kind of interactions for different kinds of work that you do. And then all of a sudden you can start going, oh, now I understand how Notebook LM works better. That's kind of the next potential leaps. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to put up a video. I did this with a bunch of other things that you could do, showing the power of what Claude Code or Claude in Excel does. Pretty impressive. Any questions? Now, let's do, where am I? So let's do a change directory, and I'm going to go to where my Claude installation is. So there's something that came out with Claude called tasks. So they took to-do lists and they promoted them to tasks, and they did a bunch of cool stuff with it. Let's see if we can find that. So I'm not, let's just take a quick look at this. So the other day I went into Claude and I said, I want to do a task and I want to create a to-do list in using PowerShell, and I want to do all the create, read, update, and delete stuff, right? And I said, set it up as, do a task. So what it did was it created these 10 JSON files, and each one is like, okay, subject, designer to do module, architecture and requirement. Then it created a second one called, create the modules folder and structure. Task number 3, implemented the storage layer and the data model. And then step 4, 5, and 6 are implement the remove, set, get, and I think list or add, right? Step 9, write pester tests. And then step 10, create documentation. Now, what's also interesting about this is, let's click on, so write pester tests. It also has something called block by. So what that means is, um, this task can't happen until 4, 5, 6, and 7 are completed. And basically, by saving this in a file, when Claude runs, it'll actually spawn off all the different pieces to get the job done, and it will update the tasks so that each subagent will be able to go, oh, well, where are we? What are we doing? Who's blocked? Who's not blocked? Does something else need to get fixed that was already done? And it doesn't step over each other, and it builds a whole bunch of cool things. Let's see, Troy says it would be interesting to run the same prompts in Copilot and Claude Excel to see the difference. Copilot is pretty lacking from my experience. Copilot is severely lacking. They're trying to play catch up, regardless of how many check boxes they take to say, we got this, we got this. Yeah. And OpenAI and Anthropic have had it for a while and have really put some polish to it. And then Anthropic comes out with this kind of cool stuff. So yeah, it's interesting. ACP is gaining traction. Yeah. I'm not again, ACP, ADA, all those different things are definitely all, taking shape. We'll see where it goes. At the end of the day, yeah, it's right. The fire hose is crazy. Um, but the agent communication protocol, I'm not going to make a prediction, but I suspect it's not going to make it. Uh, it's really interesting how the use of file systems are much more adept at getting this done than the inter-process communications across stuff. Um, that could be a office hour discussion. And again, I could be wrong. But this stuff is getting really interesting. And guys like Steve Yagi or Yag, I'm not sure I've never pronounced his name correctly. He worked at Google, then he was at SourceGraph. He came up with something called Beads, Beads, and he started implementing this concept. Didn't use the file system, used like SQLite or a vector database to get it done. But he was demonstrating how efficient that was. And there's a bunch of people who stepped forward who are doing some really amazing stuff showing, yeah, using the file systems and these kind of things so that the process of all the agents talking in a single place so we can keep track of what's happening and not lose track and then like leave breadcrumbs for each of the other agents. It's really taking shape. And then things like Hugging Face go off and do research on this, and they're putting out some great papers about it. Anyway, yeah, I'm not getting wedded to Claude. I'm not wedded to Microsoft. I'm not wedded to Google. I'm just watching all this stuff happen and then using you know, how I internalize LLMs. I've said it before. The principles are context model, prompts, and tools. And that's what this all comes down to, right? Now, if you do tasks, it's just all those things in one place, give it to the agent, and these things get generated and ready to go. Now, the other thing that I want to show that's kind of interesting. So I'm inside of Visual Studio Code, and this is kind of like let your brain go and let it figure things out. And I'm going to say, let's close this down. I'm going to say, let's get rid of this I want to get rid of this. Yeah, I'm going to do. So I was like, this is really cool. And this reminds me of mainframe days for lots of different reasons, which I won't go into. But the whole, what's blocked, what's dependent, all that kind of stuff, it's workflow concepts in my mind. So I'm going to say, read the J. Now I'm inside of Copilot. I'm gonna use Grok Code Fast one for whatever. You could use whatever one you'd like. Read the JSON files, and can you see what I'm typing on the bottom right? And create a mermaid diagram. Let's see if creating a mermaid diagram from the JSON files. So now off it goes to read the JSON stuff. Now, what's interesting, I took the same exact prompt and I gave it to my PS Claude, my PowerShell mini Claude, and it did pretty much what we're about to see. Now, I hope people are, let's just click the preview. And how amazing is that? So that is a layout of everything. So there's step one to do the architecture and requirements. Step two is waiting on step one. Step three is waiting on step one and two. And then here's the add, get, set, remove, and formatting. All those happen in parallel, but they all wait until step one, two, and three are done. And then the pester tests don't get done until the implementation of the commandlets. And at the same time, once those are done, we write pester tests to make sure everything works. And then it creates a module and documentation. So I didn't have to wait for Claude, Microsoft, Google, blah, blah, blah to build this for me. This is the kind of ways to start thinking about your data, right? So I guess like with Rich doing his Granite stuff, right? Start thinking outside the box. How can I use AI to do things? I'm going to probably post this later today, talk about it, see if people are, what other people are doing. I'm sure I'm not the first one to do this, but this is the kind of, now that we have AI, we talk about disposable software. We talk about software on demand. Let's take a look at tasks. This one's a little cheesy. I don't remember which one I did this in. I'm not sure if I did it in Claude or in Copilot. And I'll click on that. And what do we have here? Oh, how cool is this? Yeah, I think I did this with Copilot. And I said, hey, build me a task list. These are all the same JSON. Put it in this. You can click on what you want. This is using D3. The other ones I did, I can click on this, but the other ones I said, I think the one I did with Claude Code directly was able to use D3 and use the proper, what are these things called again? These types of directional acyclic graphs. And then I could actually move these around. And I made it so when I clicked on it, it would do the same thing as clicking on these particular ones. So I'm creating my own little custom dashboard to do all kinds of different things. This is where our thinking has to go. And then when I look at this, I go, how can I build it in PowerShell? Why do I do it in PowerShell? Because it's a lot easier for me to read 2 lines of code than 7 lines of code in Go or 10 lines of code in Python. And once I get it working in Python, in PowerShell, I can then say, hey, you know what? Make it a Go executable, make it a Rust executable if I want that kind of capability. Again, language choice is becoming irrelevant. I'm not even sure what languages we're going to be using in 3, 6, 12 months. Loving it. Need this for my projects. Plus, I still share with my team. Awesome. Yeah. And these are the kind of things that, when it comes to the community that I'm building, I'll be sharing that code behind the premium, showing how this gets done, doing extra videos of how this works. And, you can see this is kind of straightforward. I built this with, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 words. Freaking crazy. Ian says, I try to create an Azure architecture diagram in Mermaid, but they have a bug. Who, Azure or Mermaid? Oh, Mermaid does. Awesome. Well, here you go, Ian. I'm going to throw down the challenge to you. Rebuild Mermaid using Copilot or using Copilot or AI. Then you don't have to wait for Mermaid. Just saying. Um, that's what I do. That's my mindset. Mermaid has the bug. I look at stuff and I go, oh, this doesn't really have what I want. Let me ask AI to rebuild it. And if there are tools out there, I think Mermaid actually has, I'm not sure if it's open source, but there are tools that are open source that do similar, like it might be a lightweight, this, that, or other thing. I pointed at that repo. I go, build it. Done. Yeah. So we don't have to wait for these big companies anymore. And again, back to Claude and Excel, really cool ways that you can tie a chat interface, which is like another 10 words to make it happen, and then say tie it into here. Now, so it just gets really, really, really interesting. I am trying to do a hello world with PowerShell on the browser, and the AI says it'll cost millions of dollars. Um, it is? Well, then I think, dude, you're not going to like this. I'm going to get brutal. I'm wondering how you're prompting or you're asking the wrong AI. But yeah, it might, I don't know about it costing that. What do you mean by millions of dollars? Like so the first thing I did was when I did, let's see if I can get my Rust thing. If I don't remember what I called it now. Yeah, I got lucky. Right. So the first thing I did here, and I was creating issues, and this is all public, so you can take a look at it. I don't know if I may not have it here. Excuse me. Yeah, the first thing I did here was I said, "Hey, what would it take to build this thing?" And it came out and said it'll take 36 weeks to do. And I guess it was assuming that I meant, you know, yeah, I can't find it. Bummer. I got it locally. So it would take 36 weeks to build. I turned it on. I said, all right, let's go to town. Do it, do it all by the phases you defined. Every phase, I would then take it and test it and then do the QA and feedback. Um, it did about an hour and a half worth of work over a couple of days, and we were already at week 32. So yeah, it's changing for the world part. It's charging for the world part. I'm not sure what that means. Yeah. So when you say millions of dollars, is that because it did a calculation of that's how much LLM time it's going to need, or I don't know. But yeah, and then it all, if you're going to go big, like putting in PowerShell on the browser and you're going to do WASM and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's not going to be a small task, right? Me sitting here saying I want a PowerShell interpreter in Rust, that's not a small task. There is a specific package called .NET, yeah, WebAssembly, and it said it would cost millions of dollars to create a package for Power. Yeah, I'd have to see what you're doing, what environment you're doing it in, which agents you're using, if any. Are you doing, lots of different considerations. If you see something that's going to cost $1 million, it should be a red flag. Just back to Sam Altman's point, by the end of 2026, for $100 to $1,000 of inference and a good idea, you'll be able to create software that would take a team of people a year to do. So yeah, I don't know where you try to build it. I don't know, maybe use the Azure AI or something. Doesn't matter. But I would say, again, comes down to the principles: context, models, prompt, and tools. Um, yeah. Anyway, so let's take a look. So I'm going to wrap up a couple more minutes. Any questions so far? Um, is this kind of stuff that folks want to see? Um, yeah, I'm really excited about the community where we might. Good. You like it, Pete? Excellent. I'm excited about the community. We're going to do some. Yes. Curtis says yes. Is that for everything? Yeah, let's take a look at one more thing. I'm doing it again. I always go, all right, I'm going to wrap up and then I do another 40 minutes. Let's change D. I think this is super cool. Yes, very helpful. Excellent. Oh, yeah. And usually, I mean, I'll call it latest news or according to Doug. No, I don't know about according to me. I pick up random stuff and I take notes and then that's just what I do. I'm going to do live stream. I'm going to make a direct, let's see if it's still there or gone. Hopefully it's gone. Nope. Let's do an RM. That's I can't pronounce that name. Glad you like it. So let me get rid of this. We're going to make a thing called live stream. Now, keep your eye on the birdie. This, I think, is really cool. All right. Ooh, I still have the Whoosy Water. I have my prompt. Now, check out this prompt. This is about 12 lines. So, Ian, how much do you think this would cost? Create a Greet FN, save to PS1, make a GitHub repo, private, and push the code. Now, I'm going to add a little extra piece. Show the result on the web. So what do you think that means? So I wanted to create a greet function. I wanted to do it in PowerShell. So when it sees saved PS1, it knows it's PowerShell. So it's going to create the greet function, put it in a file. Then it's going to make a local GitHub repo. Then it's going to make a I already know. So what do you, don't say I already know. Tell me what it is. And then it's going to create a private repo up on github.com. Then it's going to take what it creates here. Oh, you saw me tweet it. Did I put this out? Awesome. Then it's going to push the code up to the GitHub. And at the end, when it's all done, it's going to hopefully show me the result. Now, this is using my mini Claude code. This is Doug Fink's implementation of function calling tools and subagents. And when you look at the code, it's like, oh, it's just a bunch of freaking loops. Yeah, that's all it is. It's a bunch of fruit loops. So, you know, to me, the rest of this stuff is all fucking marketing. We have a MCP with a work IQ, with a this and that, to the other thing, and we got the people that are doing the real work are Anthropic, in my opinion, at this point, and so is OpenAI. Now they're competing. All the Anthropic people used to be the deep researchers from OpenAI, and they went and created their own company. So yeah, the rest is just whatever. So invoke PSClaudeCode. This is all PowerShell. This prompt's going to go in. It's going to get broken down. All right, Julius, thanks for joining. Hope to see you next time. Create a read function. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. And then now we're kicking off the loops. It's talking to AI, just passed it all up, and it comes back and it says it wants to write a file called greet.ps1. Notice it says allow because I have permissions whenever it tries to do something. I also have a switch on this called dangerously skip permissions. So if you feel comfortable that, and I put it in there because I use it, that this would not even prompt me. It would just go forward and do everything. So it's going to write the file. So it tells me it's success. Now there you go. YOLO, baby. I was going to do YOLO, but I didn't want to get crazy. So it did that. Now it's creating a README file. Did it do the init? So did it get init? So it created the file. Did it get init? It's writing the README file. How sweet is that? And we're continuing. It's doing the git add. So it's going to do the git commit locally. All sweet. It did the commit. And now it's going to do, notice what it's doing now. GH repo create. And we're done. All right, let's go take a look at what this just spit out. I just love this shit. So did a GitHub. So I have GitHub CLI installed. It figured that out at some point. So my invoke PSClaudeCode has no knowledge of GitHub CLI. It has no knowledge of what's on my machine. It just began to figure this stuff out, figured out certain parts that are on my machine, and then it knows the syntax of GitHub CLI. So it created a repo, called that, made it private, hooked everything up. Where's the push? Somewhere. I think this is the push right here. So it created it, made it private, and then it pushed the local up to the remote. And then it said GitHub repo view, right? And there is my greet function. Now, I didn't have to limit it to just a greet function. I could have put my to-do list in there, like create a whole to-do. Off to the races we go. And then it comes back at the end, created a greet function, personalized greeting, created that, initialized the repo, created a GitHub repo, pushed, opened. You can now test the function locally. Oh, man. And then Anders says, there's a big shift coming. The big shift is here. And what Anders is doing with TypeScript and hooking up to LSPs is the real work. Everything else, it's for the investors. And the investors were not happy. They were like, yeah, we think you're full of shit, dude. Let's tap you for $400 billion. Sad but true. But they're still a multi-trillion-dollar company. So imagine what you can do with this. The other thing that's really cool, which I won't show, if I ran this again, what happens if I put an ampersand at the end? Any takers? So I'm going to run, if I were to run this and put the ampersand at the end. Matrix says job. Dude, what, you can't type today? Are you having a sandwich and typing? Yes, it would create a background job and it would run this in the background. That means I could come up with like this and then another one and another one. And in parallel, I could be doing the same thing. I would change my prompt because I would say, create the greet function in C/temp/ whatever. So it knew because the jobs run in isolation, so to speak. But now I have multiple agents running, creating code, pushing it to GitHub, doing whatever. Now this is just creating code, right? Let's see if I can find one more and then we're going to wrap this puppy up. Oh, come on. All right. Invoke PSClaudeCode. Now, again, Claude Code has no knowledge of anything I'm going to type here. What are the issues on the repo defink? That's me. Import Excel. Now it knows nothing about, and it, boom, knows how to construct a syntax issue list for that repo, limit 100, and there you have it. It pulls out the current issues, which I don't think they are. 20. Yeah, that looks, yeah, that's correct. So gives me those issues. There we go. So now just imagine, I didn't have to go. I didn't have to figure out the GH command. I could put this in a scheduled job, off to the races. Now, what's interesting about this kind of stuff, and I'll create the greet function and all that kind of, somebody who was using Moltbot, aka or formerly known as Prince, formerly known as Claudebot, um, they installed Claudebot, and this is one of the top influencers. OpenClaw, they call it OpenClaw. Oh, Yop is on the house in the house. I thought they call it Moltbot. I guess that's what he named it on Twitter or on X until. You're funny, Yop. Too bad you're only into rag. Um, so yeah, I guess OpenAI. Maybe he's trying to piss these people off, and the more he gets sanctioned, the more he gets subpoenas or cease and desist stuff, the more popular his stuff is. But his stuff is what I can see. I haven't tried it. Is amazing. So somebody installed the, I guess OpenClaw, whatever name it is today. So the Claude stuff that the guy wrote. So this guy installed it. Awesome. Thank you. The guy, so one of the top influencers in AI, really good guy. I think it's Nader Dabbit is his name. He's a great follow on X. So he said, "Here's the 7 things I'm using Claude for. Claude and Claude." So he installed Claude. He did 6 different things, and the seventh thing, I don't know why he did it. I thought this number 7 should have been number 1, but the seventh thing that he did was he gave Claude his credentials to X, and he said the prompt he gave it was, "This site has been reported as unsafe." Awesome. Don't believe it, Martin. It's all bullshit. So anyway, so his seventh thing was he gave his credentials to Claude when he set it up, and he gave it the prompt. He said on a daily basis. So as soon as you say something like on a daily basis or every hour or every Sunday, the Claude stuff goes in and sets up a cron job, right? And says, "Oh, okay, well, I'll do this every day at 7 a.m. or whatever time it's set in the prompt." So he said, gave you the credentials to X, and he said, go up and look at X every period of time and find out what is trending in AI, see if there's a GitHub repo, and then try to implement it on your own. He also gave his GitHub credentials to Claude. So he gave him the X credentials, the GitHub credentials, and maybe a couple other things. He wakes up in the morning, he's got like 11 repos of stuff that it tried to rebuild. Now, it doesn't make a freaking difference if this thing's dangerous, if it's prompt injection, if it's going to do it wrong, it's going to do it right, it's going to create slop. Immaterial. The fact that, you can go and try and do that, absolutely amazing. So now I can take this thing here, I can just come up with like 11 different prompts, and then I can loop over it in PowerShell and say, invoke PSClaudeCode, prompt 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, put them all as background jobs. I'm off to the races. Put it up in a GitHub action, and I can say, give it the Tavily piece of code I have, which just goes out and uses Tavily to do Google searches, and I can say, go find out what's going on in the world and try to implement it or pull down the coolest parts and build the code and drop me the link to the repo. Put it up on my GitHub. I am golden. That's where we're going with this stuff. It's mind blowing. It's the AI that actually does things. Definitely not Copilot. Yeah. Um, I agree with the assertion that the Claude, whatever they freaking call it, open Claude, closed Claude, Moltbot, that thing, it's AGI. The way that what he built, how he built it, right? You know, back in the day when everybody was going to, you know, oops, what is chat? I always get that wrong. When we all started and we said, what is today's date? This is this whole chatbot stuff. It was awesome for a start. But once we took it out of the web page and we started giving it tools and we started giving it loops and we started saying, hey, if I want to compile something, if it gets an error or if it runs correctly, take that and put it back into the context, put it back in the conversation, and give all of that back. Off to the races, this thing began to develop hands and capabilities and all kinds of stuff. And that's where I'm going with exploring it. That's why I get a little PS Open Claude. Absolutely. And I'm happy. I know I'm gonna start looking at that this weekend. An Open Claude, Moltbot, whatever. I've had a bolt, put these things on, see what happens. Your memory is full. Yeah, I know. I turned off I canceled my subscription on ChatGPT and I put it over on Claude Code. So all my memory I can't read anymore. It's so sad, but that's okay. Um, so yeah, this is one of the reasons why I don't want to get locked into M365 and why I think it's really sad that they're putting the Excel agent stuff, which I'm sure is pretty slick. I know there's people writing books about Copilot agent and Excel agent on M365, and I'm like, I don't know if it's a good idea to lock that down into that cloud environment, especially when you can do things like I showed in Claude Excel. Uh, and I'm only scratching the surface with what I did. And I'm using language that I'm comfortable with. You can use language that you're comfortable with to say, it can do things like, hey, I have a business. Here's a set of spreadsheets of all my transactions and all my stuff that I've been doing. Take it, look at it, and come up with a business plan of how I can grow this thing in 3 months. And it goes to work, and and what I've seen is very accurate. Um, so anyway, I'm going to leave it at, and now we're not even talking about things like Notebook LM. I showed you the thing with the repo and my PS Claude stuff. So I know that my PS Claude code. Now I didn't invent the idea of the PS Claude code, the mini one. I took it from watching other people do a bunch of different pieces, and then I said, "Oh, I see that. Cherry pick, cherry pick, cherry pick." Put it all together, and I can give the same prompt to mine that I give to Claude Code, and it does exactly the same thing. Claude Code, has all kinds of, happy horseshit, which is used. Like if you're going to sit, like mine doesn't have a interactive mode yet, uh, right? So, it's got plugins, it's got slash commands. Yeah, that's great for humans. I don't care. I want everything, like Anders said, I want my stuff to work purely on an agent level. I want the LLMs to interact with it. The LLM is the brain. I need to present it data. I need to present it tools so it can do a bunch of things. This is great. This is to make humans comfortable and happy. Um, and I think it's very important, resume, review, rewind. And I think Microsoft just did their Copilot CLI. They're like, hey, we've got review and rewind in. Like, wow, it's only been out there for 4 months. Where you been? And it's great that they're putting it in, but that means they're not working on the frontier thinking of this shit. Um, so yeah, I don't have all these different, like, I don't have a rename or a resume, but you know what? At the end of the day, do I really, if I need that, I'll build it. These folks are building it so that, people and humans feel comfortable. I'm like, we need to get the human out of the loop, get them on the loop. Pete says, so I'm going to manage my 457. Oh, my audiobook library. Oh, man, we got a lot of stuff cooking here. Hang on. I'm going to manage my audio library, Claude, and Excel. I've got some book series going that are some difficult to find. Beautiful. There you go. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah. So now things we couldn't approach before, like what Pete just said, I'd go, yeah, I really need to do that. And then at the end, I go, yeah, I don't feel like building all that crap. Well, toss it over to you know, toss it over to an LLM or bot. Or if you're feeling lucky, pass over to PSClaudeCode. Works just like Claude Code. Why? Because under the covers, there's no magic, right? Yeah, I don't print out total use cost. Da, da, da. Who cares? Um, anyway, that's just my. So Troy says an important risk that users in Claude and Excel and other AI tools can read and manipulate spreadsheets and prompt injection attacks that hide malicious instructions, cells, da, 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 for example. Don't be worried about it, Troy. That's just to keep you from using it. That's how they brainwash us. Yeah, if am I going to sit there as a CFO of Morgan Stanley and use Claude Code on my Excel sheet? No. Am I going to I've never given my checking account information. I haven't given my tax information to these things. But there's a billion other things you want to use it for. They bring this up so they can go, ooh. So, and they what is it? Do they still have it on here? Let's see, Grok. Um, so you notice on here, I don't see, LLMs can make mistakes. Make sure you check your work. They took that off. Yeah, I was thinking for corporate use. I don't give a fuck about corporate use. If you have a risk with corporate use, because they don't want to use it, okay, find another job. That's my opinion. Like, I know a lot of people. I worked at Morgan Stanley for years, and people are like, oh, but Doug, I can't get access. I'm like, not my problem. If you want to be left behind, stay at Morgan. Going through this at work, pushing. Yeah, I mean, if you're not in a company that's embrace, and yes, and I'm not saying be willy nilly and go like when I talk to clients, I don't go, oh yeah, just put this up here, put this over here. I go, get your security team in, and then let's talk this through. I'll give you the high level, minimal viable product, how you get from point A to point Z, in a quickest, easiest way. Um, and you guys figure out what your risk profile is. That's not for me to decide. There are risks with this. Yeah, thank you, Troy. There are risks in this. And if you're in a company that is very, conservative, good luck. The same, and that's all of Wall Street. Every day I ask AI. I talk to AI every day, multiple times a day, right? Like if you go into Grok, you see this little thing. I don't know if you can hear this. Let me see. May joke about YOLO, but some lightweight controls in place should be absolutely correct. And if you look at my PS Claude code, you'll see that I have a permit. Do you see when I said, "Hey, this is happening. Do you want to do this or not?" I have some basic permission checks in there for like really dangerous shit. But if you do the prompting correctly, you're fine. But as far as prompt injection, even the AI labs aren't protected against prompt injection. So you have to do other kinds of controls to solve that, not go, "Oh, well, the LLM is at risk." Yeah, as is every piece of software. So can you, let's see if you can hear this. I have Grok and I have it on the Ava Assistant. Eva or Eve Assistant. Hey there.
Hello. Hey.
Can you hear the response? I don't know if you can.
Yes, I hear you just fine.
Okay, so now I can ask a question. Now it's going to respond every time that I say something.
What would you like to ask?
So I'm on a live stream and a bunch of people are watching what you're doing. Can you tell me what is Wall Street doing with AI? Not what they're investing in, but what are they working on that's interesting?
All right. Wall Street and AI. Let's dive in. Hey everyone on the stream. Wall Street's going wild with AI right now, but not just throwing money at startups. They're building it deep into their own ops for speed, smarts, and cutting the boring stuff. Check these out. Here are some cool visuals of how AI's hitting trading floors and desks these days. Big banks like JP Morgan are rolling out generative.
So I talk to AI like that every day. It's pretty cool. It came back and said, "Hey, everyone on the stream." So it's very weird to me how it understands that kind of stuff, and or it responds in that way. Most of these things, like when I hear it start talking about this, I say that's bullshit stuff. That's fluff, and just give me the stuff. And so we go down a different set of paths. Um, but yeah, I mean, AI agents for traders? No, they're not. It just does analysis on, it'll go over a bunch of offerings and whatnot. They don't actually have it making trades. So it's just, again, just fluff. So Pete says if we panic like this for the internet or email, they wouldn't exist. Hey, we did panic like that for the internet and email. Um, who was I? If you know the name Mark Andreessen, like, he created Netscape. He has like a 1 minute video. I don't think I retweeted it, but he talks like back in the day when email came out. We, all the big bosses, they used to have secretaries because they had typewriters and whatnot. They would type up the memos. They would take dictation and whatnot. And when emails came in, the big bosses didn't do the email. The um, the secretaries printed the emails, gave them a stack of paper, and then the bosses would actually just scribble what they wanted to on it. There you go. They would print it. And then the boss would scribble the response. They would take it back to their desk, type it in, and whatever. They didn't want to do emails. And then in the internet, are you kidding? It was hilarious. People were freaking out left and right about the internet. Oh my God, it's going to do this. It's going to the same fucking bullshit. It's going to brain rot. People are. I can remember back in 1998, 99, maybe a little earlier. I knew people who knew Mary Meeker who worked at Merrill Lynch. You can look up Mary Meeker. She's was one of the top people back in the day. I actually met her at one of the guys CTO's wedding. And I didn't really know it was her, and I was sitting at the same table, and I didn't talk to her most of the night. And then he came over. He goes, "That's Mary Meeker." I'm like, "Get the fuck out of here!" And by that point, I already had too many scotches. But so Mary Meeker was saying how Amazon was doing X, Y, Z, blah blah blah. And I was telling people back in early, right after they were doing books, they started doing also. I was like, "Hey, I just did all my holiday shopping through Amazon, and it came delivered. I didn't have to go to the stores. I got everything I wanted. It came on time." And then everybody was laughing at me like, the best part of it is going to the stores and doing whatever. I'm like, why would I go stand online and deal with crazy stuff and things being out of stock when I can just order it online and have it delivered, and I can have it wrapped? I'm like, and then within not very long after that, people started figuring it out. So it was the same thing with internet, same thing with emails, and it's the same thing with AI. And yeah, it's a good reason to be skeptical. Being skeptical of Claudebot and how that works. Absolutely, don't go into this and go, "Hey, it's party time. Let me turn this puppy on." No, pay attention to what the situation is, and as Troy said, the fire hose is on. It's a crazy ride, and AI is only accelerating what it can do and what these AI labs are putting out and showing what we can do. And right now, the company to keep an eye on is what Anthropic is talking about, because they're really pushing the envelope. And it's not about LLMs, right? The LLM's great. You can't get stuff done without Opus 4 or OpenAI's Codex 5.2 codec. I'm sorry, the GPT 5.2 codec stuff, top notch, figures things out, looks at can follow instructions forever and look at hundreds of thousands of lines of code, which I'll never build. I would go into a company and go, "Hey, why don't we just rewrite that in AI with the AI's help and just get down to the core things you need to deliver." But as they're really pushing the frontier. I have no idea where we're going to be in April or by after the summer. It's going to be super crazy. But I'm going to keep my finger on the pulse and have these live streams and the community, and maybe we can build some really cool things. And if you're interested, I'd love to have you. All right, folks. Thanks for hanging out on a Friday. Really appreciate it. Hope it was useful. Grab some of the repos I have. Patreon #1. Awesome. Glad you liked it, Troy. Yop. Enjoy the weekend. Yop, what are you gonna do? A little rag this weekend? Put some database, some text in a embeddings database. Glad you liked it. Hey, Ian. Hey, Ian. Yeah, if be great to hear some more about what's going to cost $1 million. I think that's an excellent red flag. Add Claude to PowerShell Ice. Is that your go-to line now? Um, but that won't work unless you install some WSL and slip some Notepad++ and some SharePoint in there. Well, yep. So when I'll drop the link to the community, and then you can click on it and join. Again, that's going to be it's I'm charging for it, so you take a look, and hopefully you'll still continue to join. Um, all right, folks. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about all this stuff. Maybe we can help solve those things or understand it better. And maybe we have to sit back and say, yeah, this would cost $1 million. I don't know. All right, folks, enjoy the weekend if you're not already starting. You're welcome, Matrix. Later. Add all my keys to the profile. There you go, dude. Now we're talking. Later.